What I'm going to do here is a really brief review on interval notation. So let's take a really simple example. I'm just going to start with x is greater than 3. Now there are multiple ways in math that we can express this statement. One of the things we've been looking at is using a number line. So here I'm going to draw an open circle because, I said before, less than x is greater than 3. So here I have an open circle. I'm going to put 3. And so what this is saying is that x will include all numbers that are bigger than 3. And on a number line, every number that's bigger than 3 is to the right. So we'll shade all of that. And we're going to leave an open circle because it does not include 3. Now, x is greater than 3 means that every number that's bigger than 3 would be included. And that goes all the way to infinity. And infinity is a theoretical value, for lack of a better term. We can never reach that because numbers go on forever. So we can express this using interval notation. And so what we do is we have two things that we're going to put in our brackets or parentheses. On the left-hand side, we're going to put the lower end of our statement. So the smallest, or the lower end or lower bound on this statement is 3, because anything that's less than 3 is not included in this. So I'm going to put 3 here. So that is the lower end. I'm going to put a comma, and on the right-hand side, we're going to put the upper end. In this case, I'm still getting used to this. How do I get rid of that? There we go. In this case, the upper end is infinity. So I'm going to write infinity here, and I'll write that this is the upper end. Now, because our lower end does not include 3, it just says x is greater than 3, I'm going to use a parentheses on this side. So I'm going to use a parentheses because x does not include 3. On the right-hand side, I'm also going to use a parentheses because we can never actually get to infinity. So whenever we have infinity, we always use parentheses. So this would be the same statement in interval notation. Okay, let's look at a similar but slightly different example. So what if I wrote x is greater than or equal to 3? Our number line would look very similar, except that because 3 is included, we're going to fill in the dot. So I'm going to put a 3 there. But this will include any number that is equal to or bigger than 3. So we'll shade to the right. Okay, and then on the lower end, we're going to have 3 because that's the smallest we can get. And on the upper end, we still have infinity. Now, because we can never reach infinity, we always are going to have a parentheses there. But since this answer includes 3, because it says x is greater than or equal to 3, we're going to use a bracket. So here we're going to use the bracket because 3 is included in the answer. So we can look at something, again, similar, but slightly different. What if I said x is less than or equal to 3? So if we did this, if we draw on our number line, we would fill in our dot at 3. But because x now includes all the numbers that are smaller than 3, up to 3, we're going to shade to the left. So this is going to go on forever, but it's going to go to negative infinity. And so our interval notation is going to look a little bit different. So our lower bound now, or our lower number, is negative infinity. And because we'll never actually reach there, we put a parentheses. And our upper number is 3. And because our answer includes 3, it's less than or equal to, we're going to use a bracket. We'll do a couple more examples here. So let's take, for example, something like x is greater than 3 and x is less than or equal to 6. So if I drew this on the number line, I'm going to have an open circle at 3 because x is greater than 3 but does not include 3. And I'm going to have a shaded in dot at 6 because x is less than or equal to 6. So 6 is included here. If I look at x is greater than 3, it's going to be all the numbers bigger than 3. And x is less than or equal to 6 is going to be all the numbers smaller than 6, including 6. So the only numbers that fit both of those criteria are these numbers in between 3 and up to 6. So we can denote this using interval notation. So we use the lower number, the lower bound here is 3. And the upper number, the upper bound is 6. Now, because our answer does not include 3, we're going to put a parentheses. And because our upper answer does include 6, we're going to put a bracket. All right, one more. Let's say x is greater than or equal to 6, or x is less than 3. So if we draw this on the number line, x is less than 3, so I'm going to put an open circle there. X is greater than or equal to 6, so I'm going to put in a filled in circle for 6. Now, if x is less than 3, then we're going to do all the numbers smaller than 3. And if x is greater than or equal to 6, then we're going to do all the numbers bigger than 6, including 6. Now, to denote this in interval notation, we're going to have to write two different intervals. One for x is less than 3 and one for x is greater than or equal to 6. Now, if we're looking at, let's just look at x is less than 3 in isolation. The lower bound, remember this line goes forever, so the lower bound is negative infinity, and the upper bound is 3. Since we can never reach negative infinity, we're going to use a parentheses, and because 3 is not included in our answer, we're going to use a parentheses on this side. Now let's consider x is greater than or equal to 6 on its own. Now remember, this is going to go all the numbers bigger than 6 all the way up to infinity. So our lower bound is 6, and our upper bound is positive infinity. Because we'll never reach infinity, we're going to put a parentheses there. And because x is greater than or equal to, so 6 is included in this, we're going to put a bracket. And to join these together, the symbol we use is this U. So the U you can think of as like union. So that U brings together both intervals to say that x can go from -infinity to 3, and then it could go from 6 to infinity. So those are just a few examples on how to do interval notation.